So what is the role of faith? What is the role of prayer? What is the role of spiritual warfare? What is the role of these spiritual issues when we start looking at church growth and church revitalization and church turnarounds and church leadership? And so I'm just going to lob this out there. Let's talk for a few minutes, if we can, just about the role of prayer in the processes in the churches that we work with, and what we're seeing out there, trends, issues that you see. Let's just hop in that general question, and we'll see where that takes us.
Prayer first, huh?
Yeah.
That's hard to beat. I've given a lot of thought to this question of prayer and experimented with a number of different possibilities I've heard from the collective of many of you. And I find that there's a important connection with between the change agent, the interventionist, and the intercessor. And I've had probably 2 or 3 just choice intercessors that have backed me up, almost like the old illustration of the 49ers with Joe Montano, and who was the one he was passing the ball to? Rice. It's like I'd go out on an assignment, be way over my head, pray as never before, and just at the last moment look up and the ball comes right into my hands. And that is something that I encourage and embrace and be able to expect almost invariably when you're in the front line. And that's when it matters, when you're in the front line and all you have is God's grace and His power available to you.
Sure. It's always interesting to me because often when I do consultations with churches, I'm always going to hear 2 things. We're a friendly church, and you know who they're friendly to, and we're a praying church. And then we peel away the onion a little bit, and we may discover that that may or may not be true. Dr. Lawless, just help us with this.
Well, John, I think you're right that prayer is the means by which we get the power to do what we do. And I think we have to think about this as we help churches. The reality is we can't change a church, and we know that intellectually. I'm not convinced we live that out spiritually. And so for us, for my consulting team, I want us always asking the question, are we praying proactively or reactively in what we're doing? Are we praying before we go into a church? Are we praying as we look at a church? Or do we try to fix first and then pray? And I think for most of us in our spiritual lives, our tendency is to try to climb the mountain as far as we can climb it and then turn around and pray when we can't go any farther. And that's simply an admission by our action that we think we can do it on our own. And so I have a sign in my office that simply says this, that prayerlessness is idolatry of the self. It really is, not praying is evidence that I believe I can do it on my own. Praying is an admission that I need God's help. And if we're going to change churches, we'll never do it on our own. We have to do it in God's power. And so we have to constantly ask, are we really covering this process in prayer? Or are we doing it first and then praying?